Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Our Community with Whitney Prather. Learn about what's happening in Stark and Tuscarawas counties and the surrounding areas. We're going to highlight interesting people, businesses, organizations, churches, events, and even more. Stay tuned. Today we're talking to Rachel Hagemeyer of the Canton Symphony Orchestra, where she's the manager of education and community engagement. Rachel is going to tell us how her passion for music began and the circumstances that led to her picking up her first instrument, the bassoon. She'll also share how the Symphony Orchestra is doing during this pandemic, her hopes of where it could be in the future, and so much more. But first, you should know Rachel is young and bright, and she has so much to offer this community. She's a graduate of the Baldwin Wallace Conservatory of Music with degrees in bassoon performance and arts management and entrepreneurship. In Stark County, she's a member of Y Stark. She's a graduate of the Spotlight Young Professionals program, and she's currently a member of Leadership Stark County, the signature class. Rachel is dedicated to educating the next generation of classical music patrons and engaging the Stark County community in authentic and honest ways. I really enjoyed this interview, and I know you will too. Rachel, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Well, we cannot wait to learn about everything that's happening at the Symphony. You want to give us a quick rundown of what the Symphony is and maybe some of the things that you guys have upcoming?
Sure. Yeah. So the Symphony's been around in Canton since 1938. So it's been here for quite a while. We're actually this year with our season, Gerhardt is it's his 40th season, our music director. So he's been here for 40 years. So this year is really special for us and for him, even though, you know, things are weird and we can't really do performances right now. We're trying to make it really celebratory anyway. But at the Symphony, we have a ton of education programs for ages 0 to 100. That's my job, as I manage those, and as well as our community engagement initiatives. We've got a lot going on. Like I said, with COVID, we haven't really been able to do a lot of performances, and we won't probably for a while, but we've had some chances with the community at Gervasi Vineyard to do some performances. We actually just had one in November. And, you know, looking towards the future, we're trying to get something put together for the holiday season and something for Valentine's Day. So just stay tuned on our website and see what we've got going on. Everything looks weird this year, but we've still got stuff happening.
Yeah. You know, I think that's just the name of the game, and
Right.
Everybody is in the same boat of just really trying to tread lightly and pay attention to the numbers. And I think we were getting kind of excited, but then the numbers went back up. And so we're just a little bit cautious.
Yep.
So I kind of was browsing on the cantonsymphony.org website and saw that there were tons of virtual presentations. Can you tell me a little bit about what you guys decided to do to still stay involved in the community during this time?
Yeah. So back in March, when everything had to shut down, we actually, as a performing arts organization, were one of the first organizations that had to shut down. We made that decision before the state actually did. Michelle Charles, our CEO, was very cautious and wanted to make sure that we kept people safe. So we shut our doors actually earlier than most people. But ever since then, since I am education and community engagement, I had to still figure out, how do I engage people? How do I educate people, even though they can't come into our hall? So I immediately started just making things virtual. Our Listen at the Library program, which was supposed to start in March, we just turned it into a virtual program, had musicians record their parts individually at home, spliced it all together for a program. I created a music from home series, kind of teaching people.
You make it sound so easy. Just spliced it all together. I'm sure that was a lot of work.
You know, we all had to become amateur video producers throughout this entire thing. So, you know, we did stuff like that. I did a music from home series where I was just here in my house talking about musical instruments and making stuff out of cardboard and stuff like that. Then once we got into the summer, we were able to do stuff outside. So we were at Gervasi and we were able to still play for people, even though it was duets and very socially distanced. In the spring as well, I turned our kinder concert into a virtual offering. And then in the fall, we just released our young person's concert, which is also virtual. And because it's virtual, we've actually been able to reach 6,000 students as opposed to our normal 3,000. So we've doubled the number of people we're usually able to reach, because our hall has capacity, and with online, there's no capacity. So that's been really, really cool. So we've done that. Our youth symphony program has gone completely virtual. So props to all these kids for being a part of this program and making it work virtually. But yeah, we've had a lot going on, actually. It's just all been on your screens as opposed to
So how do you do a youth virtual orchestra? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, so we have a very robust youth symphony program. There are 3 groups, and we have ages 7 to 18 involved. So usually there are 3 ensembles, and they all meet at the Symphony Center and they rehearse. This year, obviously, we can't do that. We have students coming from 6 different counties, and it would be pretty irresponsible of us to have them all gather in one place and then send them back to their respective towns. So they meet virtually on Zoom each week, and they all mute, and Matthew, our conductor, conducts, and they play along at home, and then they have discussions. They get one-on-one training each week. They get sectional training each week. So even though it's not together, they're still actually working on music and submitting videos. And then we have a videographer who's going to put all of the videos together for a virtual concert that will happen in December. So we're making it work. It's a lot of work, but I think it's definitely going to be worth it to see that even though they can't meet together, they still have something to show for all of their work that they've been doing.
And are you finding that they're still like really engaged with this process? Is it like Zoom school? Like the kids are like, oh my gosh, or are they?
It's difficult. It's difficult. These students are special because they choose to do this. It is outside of school. It is not required. They are choosing to be there. I give pep talks basically every week, trying to just keep morale up, because it is tough when you're just in a room and you're only playing your part. You can't hear everyone else. It's just you by yourself. So it can get a little discouraging, but I think the fact that they even get to see each other each week and talk to each other and work together in sectionals and hear each other that way is really encouraging for them. And I think it's difficult, but they're making it work. And it's the highlight of my week each week when I get to get online with them. And I think for them as well, they use the chat and they're all talking to each other. And I think they're doing a really wonderful job. So
tell me about your role. So you just kind of told me about the programming that you put together for the youth. Unpack your role a little bit. You're the manager of education and community engagement. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a very long title. And
seems complex.
It's a little different. It's really hard to put into a concise answer of what I do. So usually my 1 sentence pitch I tell people is I'm responsible for the engagement of education of the community ages 0 to 100. So I put together the programming, work with the musicians to create programming, write scripts, put together educational materials when it regards to our educational stuff. And then I'm also looking to create community partners to get to know our community, to listen to people, to see what people want, and to find real partnerships and authentic partnerships that will work and make us feel more relevant and authentic to our community. So there's a lot of moving parts, and my days look different every single day. But
how has that part been during this pandemic? Have you been able to connect as much as you wanted to, or has that suffered as well?
I think at the beginning, I wasn't quite sure what to do. And I've been working here from my couch since March. But I've still been able to connect with people, I think, in maybe a more authentic way than I was beforehand, because when I first started my job, I just had moved to this community. I was new. I didn't know anyone. And now that I've been here for a little bit longer, I'm really starting to get to know people. And since we're all in this pandemic together, I've been able to find common ground that maybe I couldn't find with someone beforehand, and make things work because we're all in the same boat. So I think it's been a blessing in disguise for me, at least, because it's actually given me time to devote more energy and attention to creating relationships and developing those, that maybe because we were in the office and doing all this programming, I didn't have time. I literally physically didn't have time before. And now I have a little bit of time. So, looking forward as we start to reopen in the future over the next year or so, that I can rework my time so I keep this amount of energy up for meeting my community and getting to know people better.
I told you a little bit earlier that I remember as a student in Canton City schools interacting with the Canton Symphony.
Yeah.
So I know that touch point is so crucial. Tell me a little bit about what you have seen, and how long have you been with the orchestra?
It's been just about a year and a half. So
okay. So still really new.
Still fresh. Yes.
You joined the team and then the pandemic happened.
Yes, basically. I had about 6 months under my belt and then everything was different.
Well, then you may not be able to answer this question, but maybe you will be from just the experiences that you've had, because even though it's been under a year, this pandemic feels like it's been many years. This year, 2020 has felt like there's like 2 or 3 years
right.
jammed in. But my question is, how have you seen some of the kids transformed by your involvement? Or have you had the time to see that yet?
Right. I think it's interesting because there are programs where you see students once and you may never see them again. And then there are programs where you don't even see the students because it's lots of students coming to one thing and I'm busy running around. So I actually never see the students.
Yeah.
And there's programs like the Youth Symphony where I see them every single week. So there's a lot of levels of engagement that I'm really able to gauge. But even with our big concerts, young person's concert, kinder concert, I get feedback from the teachers once they leave the program. And it's really, really wonderful to hear stories about, we heard planets and they recognized the tune from Jupiter and it was so much fun. And they really they wish they could have stayed longer because they were really enjoying the music. And I hear that secondhand from the teachers, and that's really wonderful. And it makes me feel happy that they even liked one of the pieces of music. I mean, Jupiter is awesome. Most people would recognize it if they heard it. And then there's programs like Symphony Land that we do in the spring where young ones come in with usually their parents or their grandparents, and they listen to a trio concert. And I get to be there the entire time. I'm usually like lurking in the back corner. It's so fun to see these young people so entranced with a cello, and they just want to go up and touch the cello. And, I hear students saying, I want to play that, or I want to do this, and getting excited by the flute and stuff like that. So I get to see that as well. With our Youth Symphony students, even though I've only been there for a year and a half, I've been with them a full season and now a little bit longer. And the amount of growth that we see in students, both musically, but also socially, emotionally, and maturity-wise in just a year is astounding. I have students that would barely open their mouth and were so quiet last year. And then for their online audition this year, they're like, hi, how are you doing? How's everything been? And they're just so outgoing and wonderful. And then their playing has just blossomed. And it's really,
That's
really
awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really amazing to see these students just so full of growth throughout the time they're with our program. So
yeah. That's awesome. That's so transformational. I love it.
Yeah.
So talk to me about why it's really important. I know that you said from 0 to 100, but just talk to me why it's really important to engage with our schools and our young people with music. I think it really opens them up to something that's so different, than what they're listening to on the radio.
Right. I think classical music is interesting because it is one of the only forms of music where new music in classical music is about 100 years old. Right. So what's considered new in classical music was written in the early 1900s. What we play on a day to day is 200, 300 years old. Bach, Beethoven, Schumann, all these people who they've been dead for quite a while. And so it's really interesting to try to connect students with these people who lived a long time ago. And I think what we're seeing in classical music right now is a need to open up what we view as classical music and open it up a little bit, because for so long we've been in this realm of Germanic white composers, when there's this huge realm of composers that we don't really even touch on, that have been around for a very long time and are prolific and wonderful. And one of the reasons that I think young people haven't been as engaged in classical music is because they just don't see themselves in the composer.
Yeah.
I mean, people want to see themselves in what they're watching in the movies and on TV and in their music. So for young Black people, if it's only just a lot of white people, why would they want to be engaged? So we have to introduce them to people like Florence Price and people like William Grant Still and these wonderful American composers who have been around, just they aren't played. And so I think it's really important for young people to be engaged in classical music so they can see that they have been included in music and they are relevant in music and have been for hundreds of years. Maybe it wasn't shown until now, but they have been. Yeah. And, then on just a level of everyone, music is something that transcends everyone, every single culture in the world has music as one of its earliest foundings. And, the earliest composers that we can find is ancient Egypt. It was a female composer that you can find on like a tablet, and I forget her name, but, music has been around for forever. Mm-hmm. And so if we can even just bring a bunch of people together over this common thing that is music, I mean, that's a wonderful thing. They can learn, they can develop, they can be together, and they can have this shared experience that maybe they wouldn't get through something else. Because even if one student doesn't like one piece of music, one student would like another one, and they can talk about it and they can connect in different ways and, develop their own thoughts, their own viewpoints about this music. And then that can translate to the world, and they're thinking about the world. It gets students talking. It develops critical thinking. Yes. You can talk for hours and hours about the health of music. I could go into music therapy and how it affects your mental health and all of this. But I think just at the core, it's a shared experience. And I think it brings people together and it can unite people. And especially for young people to learn that at their very young ages, I think is super crucial for a community. Yeah.
I could listen to you talk about that for a long time. I can tell that you're very informed. You do. It's my job. It's your job to do it. Talk to me about your specific story with music. What is your music story? For the listeners who don't know, you're very young, early 20s.
Yes.
So tell me about your specific music story.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in Oklahoma. I grew up in a bluegrass family. So my dad's a bluegrass musician. He plays guitar and sings. He actually started going to school for music and then changed his major to geology because he was like, what do I do with music? So I grew up in a musical family, and every year we would go to a bluegrass festival in Kansas called the Walnut Valley Bluegrass Festival. And when I was 10, I was up too late, probably at I was 10 and it was maybe midnight. I should have been in bed, but I wandered over because at these festivals, people just jam around a campfire. They'll all just be sitting on a campfire playing music together. So I go over to this jam session and there is an instrument I have never seen before. And I'm like, what the heck is that thing? And I look at it and it's a bassoon. And for those of you who don't know, bassoon is a classical instrument. It is a very weird, tall woodwind instrument. And there's just this lady who had brought her bassoon and was jamming around a campfire with all these bluegrass musicians. And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I had no idea what a bassoon was. I looked at my dad and I said, hey, I want to play that. And so the next year when I started band, they wouldn't let me start on a bassoon. They made me play clarinet for a year. But then my 7th grade year, I was able to start playing the bassoon. And I went back to that bluegrass festival and she was there. Her name is Nicolasa Custer, the bassoonist. And I was there then too. And I was jamming with her. And it was later that I realized, I was like, oh, this is a classical instrument. It plays in orchestras. I had no idea because I was just a young person who saw an instrument I liked. And so I decided at a very young age that I wanted to pursue music and I wanted to play the bassoon. I love to play and I love performance. And as I went through high school, I also really liked to be a creator and to develop things and to manage the music that was happening. So I entered college knowing, hey, I want to be a performance major. I want to be really good at the bassoon, but I really want to have the ability to be a producer, kind of, manage the music. So I also got a degree in arts administration. I went in knowing I wanted that. And so as I went through college, where do I want to work? What do I want to do? And by my senior year, I had decided I want to work in orchestras. I want to be able to manage the music that's happening, put together these programs, as well as play. So I still play, not as often as I did in college, right? Because I was playing every single day, but I play and I get to work with musicians every day. And it's a joy to do what I do and to be able to be a part of this music world that I wanted to be a part of when I was 10. So
that is remarkable. And it all started at a bluegrass festival.
It's very weird. It's a super story. Most people get introduced to the bassoon in band. I'm not in the middle of a field in Kansas. So.
I love that you knew her name. And is she still playing?
Oh yeah. So she's the professor of bassoon at the University of Pacific in California. I actually almost went to school with her. I text her. I see her. Oh
sometimes. My gosh.
Yeah. I love her. She's wonderful. She actually went to school in Ohio as well. She went to the Oberlin Conservatory.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a very small world. I know her bassoon teacher now, and yeah, it's wonderful. It's a very small world. It's a very small world.
Music pulls us all together. Yeah. That's the perfect illustration, really, of how music can just really pull people together.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It set your life on a trajectory, just her being there. So that's super, super cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. So, so you get the opportunity to actually play at the symphony, like in a teaching capacity, or are you just doing it as a hobby?
Yeah, so I don't play with the Canton Symphony. I would not have time for that, nor am I good enough. The musicians in the Canton Symphony are phenomenal. We are very, very blessed. We have world-class musicians in our orchestra. I do play with the Ashland Symphony. I'm a substitute player, so if they need someone, I've played with them before. I don't have time to be a regular player, but I do play. I play with the students in the youth symphony sometimes. Sometimes bassoon is kind of a dying instrument. Not a lot of students play it anymore. So it's a struggle to get students, which is another thing I do is, teach bassoon. I've only been here for a year, so I haven't started a studio yet, but I'm, trying to reach out to teachers and try to develop more of a young bassoonist population here because there's really not that many. So that's a goal of mine, looking forward is to be able to teach more students.
Yeah, very cool. What else do you want people to know about the Canton Symphony Orchestra?
I think the Canton Symphony it's been a part of this community for a very long time. And it is strange that an orchestra as good as the Canton Symphony exists in a community of this size. Ohio as a state is overly blessed with the number of symphonies there are. I think almost every single town in Ohio has a symphony, which is amazing and wonderful. And Canton is phenomenal. And my job is to try to make it more relevant and a deeper part of the community. And that's, I've been searching for trying to figure out a way to make us relevant and make us a needed part for everyone. Mm-hmm. So, when talking about this symphony, it's been around since the 30s, it's difficult to, we're the football town, right? The Hall of Fame and sports, and that is wonderful. And so sometimes the symphony gets a little overlooked. We're kind of literally in the shadow of the Hall of Fame. It's right next door to us. I can see it outside of my window. It casts a shadow, literally. It's wonderful. And it brings so many people to this community. And how wonderful would it be if we could be this community that is so supportive of sports and so supportive of the arts and do those things simultaneously. And, this community is blessed to have things like Arts in Stark and the Music Row downtown. And there's all these amazing projects that are coming up. And the Canton Symphony is going to try to be a part of all of those. Yeah. And so we are just looking for our community to come alongside us, to show us what they want, what they need. We're working on a lot of projects for the future. We actually are working on a project right now. It's called Orchestrating Change. It's a podcast where we interview people in the orchestral community that have been overlooked, who are minorities, who have not been treated fairly in this world. And how do we move forward and create a better orchestra community as a whole, but also here at the Canton Symphony? How do we listen to our constituents and our patrons better to be a better orchestra for everyone in Stark County? And I think we're getting there. I think we're on the right track. And And I see how supported we are by the community because of COVID-19 and the amount of donations that we've gotten this year. I mean, we have surpassed our goal, and we have done a bigger capital campaign than typical. And, without our community, we literally could not survive. We get no money. We are a nonprofit. Everything is donations. We have to get donated to. So to see the support from the community and to hopefully see it grow as we continue to learn and assess who we are, I'm very excited for it. And I hope the community is as well. And I hope they check out all the fun stuff that we're planning, even if it's going to be a little while before we can do it. I hope they come check it out and see what we've got cooking.
Yeah. So what's the call to action? How can people actually engage with you like right now? They're listening and they're like, we haven't even really thought about the symphony orchestra. How can they get involved? Are there season tickets available?
Yeah. So what I would recommend right now is if you are a family with young people in it, check out our educational programming. It's all free and online. And our Young Person's Concert will be available through 2020. So you have all of November and December. So if you have young people in your family, that's what I would recommend first. I would then recommend looking at what we have planned for our season. We are very hopeful that we will be able to do something, but with the situation the way it is more than likely that we're going to have to change our plans and just look different. But the way people can support us is small donations, buying tickets to events. We do things at Gervasi, and we're planning to do more of those. We're going to be having programming in, like I said, December and February. So take a look at our website to see what's happening there. If you want to buy season tickets, I would maybe recommend waiting until the next season when we can have a full season, but do buy tickets when we do have events that happen starting in about March. We're going to have small event stuff happening.
Oh, nice. It's right around the corner.
Yeah, it's right around the corner. So stay tuned for that. And get outside of your comfort zone. If you've never been to a classical music concert, try it. It's different. If you're not used to it, it's different. And it takes a little bit of time to get used to, but find what you like, listen to classical music, Whitney and I were talking about this, listen to movie soundtrack. That's all classical music. That's all full orchestra stuff. And listen to what you like. We've got pops concerts that we do when it's a normal season. We support local bands in our Divergent series where it's small groups from the orchestra with local bands, hip hop, jazz, indie folk, everything. So you can come hear stuff at the symphony that is not typical symphony music. So there's a lot of opportunity for people to get involved here at the symphony. And I know it's a weird year, so just stay tuned, follow us on social media, see what we've got going on. We're really excited about the future, even though it looks a little strange right now, but I hope to see more people come along with us and to have those full concert halls again when we're allowed to reopen.
Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your passion. I think that it speaks volumes of the gift that we have here. And hats off to you and all of your team members who have really tried to just make the most of this time. I think that you've had to be nimble and you've had to be flexible and change what you've done. And it sounds like you guys are doing it. I appreciate you and I appreciate you today.
Oh, thank you so much. We're trying our best. And it's people like you that allow us to share what's going on that make it all worth it and happen. So
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to our guest today. And thank you for tuning in. Cheers. Until next time.